obscure, but I am a manager story. Story one along the same lines. I was at my first trade show for a product I invented. It hit the market in February, and the trade show was February 26th. A guy came to our booth and cocky told us that had seen our product before, and he didn't like made in China. I literally laughed in his face. I said, I invented it. I make it in the US, and it's only been available for 2 weeks. He just looked at me suspiciously and walked away. Story 2, giving an interview for a restaurant job. The guy has a ton of experience and seems like he's more than capable of it. Only thing is he's a job hopper, worked at something like 10 other restaurants in town in the last year and a half. I asked him about it, why he was in and out of all these places, and he says, oh, I keep getting into conflict with people. I really just am not good with rules. I prefer to do things my own way. I never get along with management. So, in case the fact that I'm interviewing you didn't give it away, I'm the manager here. He lost all color in his face and thanked me for my time. Story 3, working night shifts at a gas station. My coworker's sister came into the store trying to buy cigarettes without an ID. I didn't say anything about it. He rejected the sale just cause he could. Using the excuse the manager may chew my out, she responded with something along the lines of how would he know? I chime in coolly with him, the manager. Story 4, I work in a retail outlet store. We receive all the older merchandise from the main stores in the district so they can make room for newer collections, and we sell the old stock at a reduced price. There's nothing wrong with the clothing. It's just from an older collection. However, because of the reduced price, everything is final sale. We won't take returns or exchanges. Before every transaction at the cash, we remind the customer that their purchase will be final sale, no exchange, no return. And then once the transaction is completed, we stamp their receipt with final sale. Of course, sometimes exceptions can be made. If the item is defective or the customer is really nice, we will make an exception. Anyways, one day a lady comes in, and I can tell she's one of those customers. Cuts me off as I'm greeting her to tell me that she wants to return an item because it didn't fit her or something like that. I explain to her that, look, I'm sorry, madam, but there is nothing that I can do. Everything is final sale. She replies that she was never told this. I take a look at her receipt, and I see that it's been stamped final sale. So I tell her, look, madam, somebody must have told you because your receipt is even stamped. Immediately, she goes off on me, yelling, screaming, swearing, saying how incompetent I am, and that's why I'm working in retail, because I can't find another job and blah, blah, blah. The whole time I'm just staring at her. She finally finishes her tirade by saying that she shouldn't listen to a lowly employee like me, and then she asked for the manager. I cleared my throat. I looked her dead in the eye with a grin on my face. I'm very sorry for you right now, but I am the manager. She just deflated. All the gusto goes out of her, swears under her breath, and leaves the store. The part that really gets me, though, is that the shirt she was trying to return, it cost $5. But it was the best moment of my entire part-time retail career. Edit grammar. Story 5, not the manager, but was in charge, working in a kitchen, and whoever was on the clothes ran the shift. I ran closes 2 or 3 times a week, depending. I rocked into work one day, started doing mine, doling out tasks as and when they needed doing. One of the newer staff members decided they weren't following my orders because I wasn't any higher up the food chain than they were in their eyes. Dude, why should I do that? You're not a manager. I'm going to carry on doing my job, which at the time consisted of standing around waiting, because it was about 10 p.m. on a Monday evening and nobody was ordering food. Now, man, I'm on the close, so it's my kitchen. We need to get this place cleaned, and I'm allowed to delegate roles. You're lucky. I've given you an easy job, really. You could be doing what Gary's got to do, where you're guaranteed to get first-degree burns if you're not careful. Fuck you. I've told you I'm not listening to you. I'm done in 2 hours, and you've got no power over me. Actual manager walks by at this point. Hey, kid, this is SG Dave's kitchen for the night. If he tells you to do something, you do it. He can run a kitchen better than I can. And if I have to come in here to make you do some actual work, he'll make sure he gets you cleaning behind the grills. It's always fun to see a lazy worker get reamed for being it. Story 6, not exactly the same, but I saw an argument in my university once. An undergrad was so sure of his position that he referenced a book. He had to prove his point. The person he was arguing with wrote the book. It was above efficient airfoils in an aerodynamics class. On the other spectrum, my boss a few years ago would ask the secretary to do something, and one time, she was like, nah, we won't be doing that. And he was all like, but I thought I was the boss, and walked away with his head down. Story 7, I used to run a bar. I'd usually be in the office or supervising, but I got bored one night and covered the bar whilst the bartenders went out for a smoke break. This woman comes up with her friends and quickly becomes an annoying customer. Takes forever to decide on drinks. Keeps trying to get free shots, trying to haggle on drinks prices, all while being rather rude. I start to get irate as the bar starts to get busy. More and more customers are trying to get drinks, but this woman will not decide what she wants. Eventually, I tell her that there are other people waiting to be served, and he'll come back to her once she's ready to order. That did not go down well. The woman starts shouting at me, saying how she could take as long as she wanted. She was there first, blah, blah, blah. She ended her ranting, saying that she didn't want to speak to a bartender anymore and demanded to see my manager. I obliged, went into the office, a door right next to the bar, waited for 30 seconds before coming out, went back to the woman, and said, "I hear you've been having an issue with a member of my staff." Her, "Is this a joke?" I said to go and get your manager. Me, you're looking at him, love, and seeing as you've wasted my time and all the good folks' time, you can wait till everyone is served before you. The look on her face was priceless. She began swearing at me profusely, even tried to throw someone else's drink over me. By that point, I had more than enough reason to throw her out of the bar, which I did, to the delight of the other patrons. I was tipped well after that, but I put that in the tip jar. Cost managers don't get tips. At least the bar staff got some money and a laugh out of it. Edit first gilding, thank you. Story 8, I run a textbook rental store. A chick comes in with books, so overdue that she has a $260 late fee. I wasn't going to make her pay that, but the only way to pull that off without hardcore unbalancing my drawer was to have her pay the replacement fee, so that she owned the books, then sell them back to the store. I knew the sell-back prices, so I knew she'd get out of the store paying less than $40 as her late fee. However, when I suggested this plan, went ape. She starts talking about how she didn't know the due date. It's on the receipt we give them. And I send out 2 reminder emails. If you didn't get the email, sucks to be you, and that it's not fair, not fair, not fair when I pointed out to her that her store stickers were on her textbooks, which would have been a reminder of where she got them, and that there's a due date. She asked to see the manager. I probably shouldn't have, but I actually walked to the back of the store and then walked back up with a big, fake smile on and said hello. And the manager, "What can I help you with?" She was livid. She tried to pull some on manage a store too. Bullshit, but I cut her off and said, if you manage a store as well, then you understand that this is a business. I have policy to follow. No one at this store is your mother. And you are a college student. If you can't remember due dates, you got problems, girl. Cue this OL chestnut. I am never coming to this store again. None of my friends are ever coming here again. I told her, good, go write a Yelp review. This happens to me all the time. Actually, I'm an attorney, but I'm pretty young and I look like I'm about 17 years old. When I talk to other lawyers I work with on stuff or against, I constantly get stuff like, well, wait until we hear from your legal counsel to respond. And then I gently remind them that, hey, I am that legal counsel. Story 9 was being trained as a manager a few months ago. On my first day managing the floor by myself, a customer from earlier in the day came by demanding to speak to the manager on duty because TLDR we royally up her 45 order and that we had to replace everything. Now, I'm a rather petite lady and I have a baby face. Didn't have a manager shirt yet, my size had to be custom ordered, but I was a full-fledged manager. I said I was the manager and asked what her name was so I could check my problem customer book in the office and see if her name was there. It wasn't no problem. I just asked to see her receipt. Surprise, surprise, she doesn't have a receipt from 2 hours ago. Sorry, lady, you aren't in the problem book and you don't have a receipt. Best I can do is some free food coupons like ice cream or a free sandwich. She asked to speak to the manager. Honey, I'm the manager tonight. She said I was inadequate as a manager and that I deserved to be fired or something. I'm paraphrasing here. Told her I was sorry, but I couldn't replace her order, and at most I could give her one free meal. She screeched and stormed out. Story 10, I was working as an inventory manager at a large chain. 2 people had called in, and we were so short-handed that I was getting sweaty helping to unload a truck. I got a call that a customer wanted to speak to a manager. So I quickly pinned on my name tag. We don't wear one while moving boxes because snags and ripped shirts, and went out to the floor. I greet the customer and ask her how I can help. She eyes me skeptically, am flushed and sweaty and dusty, not looking very managerial. She points to my name tag and says, that says supervisor. Is there an actual manager here? I look down, oops, old name tag. I say, excuse me one moment, please. I go in back and put on my manager name tag. Take a second to tidy myself up. Walk back out with a big smile. Just got promoted. How can I help you today? Story 11, not a retail story, but a manager story. I'm a manager of a manufacturing company. Since I have been here, we have had an issue with an employee. Basically, he is a sleazy bully who picks on people and likes bossing people he shouldn't be bossing. It has escalated since I joined a management team. And last Thursday, it took a turn for the worst. He so pushed a guy he works with, a guy who is very hard of hearing, that there almost was a fight. Big dude, tall and heavy and strong, was almost in tears when I took him to my office because the sleaze bag had finally gotten to him. He had specifically used big dude's hearing damage to pick at him, and the incident was about the bully making fun of big dude's lack of hearing. Not okay. You don't make fun of people's disabilities at work. Dude is a great worker. He deserves no just because he doesn't hear too well. I got to take the sleaze bag into my office one final time. I had taken him in there many times before. Those times he just smiled and asked me to point to any particular incidents. This time he did the same thing. but I told him to go home immediately, call his union rep, and return on Friday. The look on his face when he realized I had finally had enough of his was priceless. I'm going to go out and ask him for his union rep's details now. I'm going to savor the look on his face as he feels the noose tighten. Of course, the knows it won't be cheap for us to get rid of him. He has been banking on that keeping him employed for a long while, but I and the whole rest of the management team don't give a flying anymore. So what it might cost us $100K to get rid of him, I don't care. That's cheap compared to the damage he has already done. We're sitting down with our lawyer tomorrow. Then we're firing that dirty piece of bully. Edit fire the today. Gave him a severance package to avoid court. Totally worth it. My favorite is a common one. I'm the youngest in my store by 30 years. Customer asks about price of product. Says, "Are you sure?" and walks off. Usually 5 minutes later, I will see them talking to a coworker asking about price, and coworker yells, "Diabetic, can you check price on?" I walk over smiling and just say the same price I said before seeing the look of shame that they didn't trust me because I am young. Story 12 worked as a teller supervisor for about 8 months. I wasn't the highest person in chain of management, but because I closed, the branch manager was gone pretty quick after I got in. So there was this one customer in the drive-through lane, and he wanted to cash a check not drawn off of us. He had an account with us, but it was overdrawn a good bit. I had already been there for about 5 or so months at this point and had never seen this guy before. After looking over everything, I proceeded to tell him that I unfortunately wouldn't be able to give him cash, but if he wanted to deposit it, his money would go in that night. He got visibly angry with me and proceeded to tell me he didn't care and wanted to cash it anyways. I once again told him that we wouldn't be able to do that, but told him he could take it to the bank it was drawn off of, which was right down the street, and see if they would cash it. He gets even more angry at this point and pulls out a stack of hundreds, tells me to deposit it to make his account positive, and then cash the check. I explained to him our policies again, and even though I could budge a little, he was being so I said no. He then asked to speak to the manager on duty. I tell him it will be one moment while I grab him. I do a little 360 and tell him that my manager has left for the day, leaving me the manager in charge. I give his option one more time, and he deposits the check and leaves. I have never felt more triumphant in my life than at that moment. Story 13. My story comes from the customer side. Was moving out of state and called Comcast to find out where I drop off my equipment. They gave me a location based on my address. So I take my equipment to that location. About 25 minutes away, I wait in line for an hour and a half. Finally, get up to the window and am told that the person over the phone gave me the wrong location. I needed to take it to an office 45 minutes away in the opposite direction from where I lived. I argued and was asked to step out of line. I refused and called the 800 number. Got to a customer service rep who confirmed that I was at the right location, put it on speaker so the counter employee could hear the rep over the phone. Counter employee still refused to take the equipment. I asked for a manager. Counter employee left and returned with someone who was clearly not that manager. The manager told me her name. I asked the service rep on the phone if he could look up the name of the manager at this location. After 2 minutes, he told me that it was a different woman. I asked for the real manager and was told by the second woman, "I am the real manager." I asked for the real manager by name, and the 2 women behind the counter became belligerent and refused to get her. I left my equipment and the counter and turned to walk out when one of the women yelled and said I'd have to pay for it if some random person took it. I pointed to the cameras and told them that there was video proof the equipment was in their possession and walked out of the building. A few days later, I got a call from Comcast corporate. The phone service rep had put in some kind of red flag report, and someone viewed the security footage. Corporate confirmed that neither woman I dealt with were managers and both had been reprimanded. Then they gave me 20 credit on my final bill. TLDR. Comcast worked at a Papa John's around a year ago, and typically about 40% of customers would come in to complain just to get free food and would usually just give in because it's not worth arguing. I got my pizza, and there were 3 slices missing, like, okay, whatever you say. And would also get the people who obviously hated their lives so much that they felt the need to belittle every worker there. And that's exactly what happened. I'm almost done with my shift. It's me and another manager working. This guy and his son, who was dressed in baseball attire, came in, obviously just lost the game because you could see in both of their faces. Guy goes, "Where's my thick crust pizza?" My wife ordered on the phone. My other manager apologizes because she thought the lady said thin crust, which is an honest mistake because we don't even have thick crust. She offers him the mess up pizza, breadsticks, and their original order. Dude goes from pissed off look to "Where's the manager?" We both are, "Sir, well, I'm surprised they hired dumb like her here." And the son chimes in talking too. Mind you, this kid is like 10 talking adults. I ask him politely to leave, and then he proceeds to call my coworker a dumb. I was so appalled. I was so close to fighting this guy because the girl was the sweetest person ever. But yeah, long story short, baseball dads are pricks. Story 14, reposting from a previous comment of mine, obligatory, not a manager, but nonetheless relevant, since it involves shutting people down from a position of authority. So, I work for an anime convention. There's an incredible amount of drama and rumors that go around. It is insane. So this was a couple of years ago, and I happened to be waiting for an elevator with two girls who were talking about my convention's future. It's Sunday. It could be a 10 or 15-minute wait. And one of them says, "Oh my God, I'm so glad convention is moving back to the Hyatt next year. We weren't. It wasn't big enough to hold us anymore." And it's always better to quash rumors before they have a chance to circulate too much. So I politely say, "Actually, it's going to be here again." I get these obnoxious know-it-all looks from both of them. One of them goes, "No, it's not. I heard it from my friend on security. Oh, so now it's a I know someone game." But my direct boss is the owner of the convention. I have held hotel contracts for the next 3 years in my hands. I know where it will be held, but I don't want to pull the I know someone higher up than you. That's petty. So instead I say, "Why don't you email in and settle this for us? We got the time." So she pulls out her phone, goes to our website, finds the contact page, and starts typing out an email. She hits send. A few seconds later, my phone beeps. I've got a new email. I open it. It's clearly from her. It says, "Convention is moving back to the Hyatt next year." Right? I type back, "No," and hit send. Most satisfying no by a long shot. Story 15, not a manager, but a supervisor in a fast food joint. Coworker didn't know that apparently, and asked me to keep my mouth shut as he tried to take a meal without paying for it. Story 16, friend told me this story in college. He worked at Walmart, but was a stalker. For some reason, he had to cover a break at customer service. A lady brings in an old TV. So old it never came with a remote. It had knobs, was wanting to return it for a refund. He kindly explained to the lady that he could not take this TV for a refund or even store credit as it was obviously too old. The customer got upset and demanded to speak to the manager. So he called over the manager and explained the situation. The manager looked over the situation and agreed with him. They were not going to take this ancient TV for a return. The customer then decided that still wasn't good enough and started demanding to speak to Sam Walton, founder of Walmart. Manager explained that was simply not possible. Customers started escalating the situation, demanding to speak with Sam Walton. Manager then looks at the lady and says, "We have a wide variety of shovels in the lawn and garden department. If you'd like to purchase one, so you can go dig them up." Story 17, I had some junior staff who were constantly going to the accounting manager when they didn't like the answer they got from the HR director. So I pulled them into a meeting and explained that such unprofessional behavior would not be tolerated and could lead to dismissal. The joys of being the HR. Story 18, I worked at a big box electronics store. Anyway, I'm walking around counting some inventory because of suspected theft when it happened. This guy did all three things at me off in one fell swoop. He whistles, snaps his fingers, and says, "Hey, you." I was a little taken aback by the epic level this guy was achieving. Ed Hardy t-shirt, jeans around his knees, and some gold jewelry he must have got out of a claw machine at a bowling alley. So I look around behind me, then look back at him and say, "Excuse me, sir, are you talking to me?" And he was like, "Yeah, this box is damaged, had a small nick, and there ain't no way I'm paying 50 for it, so why don't you go get your manager and get him to give me a deal, box boy?" To which I replied, "All right, sir, well, I'm not a dog, so never whistle at me again." 2, I'm not a box boy, I'm a manager here. 3, the box is barely scratched, so you can pay the price or get out. He just stood there stunned and catching flies, then left. His beau down the aisle, I guess, heard the whole thing and was making fun of him on the way out. It was a good day. Story 19, not me, but I was friends with the manager and bore witness to this incident. My manager, let's call her Kelly, was getting ready to make a run to the bank. She came up and wordlessly took the big bills out of my drawer when it popped after a transaction. We've worked together for 2 years and done this hundreds of times. I hardly notice. My customer, however, seemed to think it was bad for some reason. She glared at Kelly and said, "That was really rude for you to do that." Kelly turns, "Pardon me, I said that was really rude for you to just butt in like that." Kelly offered a generic retail apology and continued on her way to the office. Some customers are odd. Not much you can do about it. The lady rolled her eyes and started gathering her things together. Who would I ask about requesting a donation? She asked. It's for the high school soccer team. With growing amusement, I directed her to the office. I craned my neck, wanting to hear what was said. I could hardly contain my laughter when I heard, "While you are the manager," followed by the lady walking out of the store very quickly. Kelly and I both had a good laugh about it. Make sure you check who the manager is before you decide to be a pompous old. Story 20 helped to open a new restaurant and started out as a grill cook. Fast forward 3 months later, the assistant general manager resigns, and they offer me the position. Since I came up through the ranks with everyone I worked with, I was a pretty laid-back manager, and the employees and I had a mutual respect. Anytime something needed to be done, I would hop onto the grill, grab a drink order, help hostesses or clean up here and there. One night, near closing time, the old manager comes in. No problem. Chat for a bit. Some of the staff chats for a bit, and everyone generally goes on their way and gets their closing routine finished up. I go to office to start working on my paperwork and cashing out the waitstaff. Come back out an hour after closing, expecting to be ready for a final walkthrough, and I find out that the grill is still on. A lot of places this wouldn't be too big a deal, but we're a Mongolian barbecue. Our grill is a 6-foot diameter steel circle that takes 30 minutes to cool down before you can clean it. I start looking around for my grill cook, the only one left, and find him on the patio, smoking a cigarette, drinking a beer. Me, Joe, why haven't you started cleaning the grill? We closed an hour ago. Joe, I'll do it when I finish my beer. Me, no. Go do it now. Everyone else is done, and now we're stuck here until you get it cleaned up. Joe, you'll do it when I finish my beer. I'm not going to work. Either put the beer down and clean the grill, or put the beer down and go home. They'll have Big Boss call you tomorrow to see if you still have a job. Joe, whatever, you can't fire me. Me walks over, takes beer, dumps it out on your manager, and I promise that I can in fact fire you. Have a good night, Joe. Go home. Walk inside, lock door to patio, and proceed to clean grill. Called the GM the next day to let him know what happened, and he backed me entirely. I think he even tried to come into work that night, and Big Boss had him escorted off the property. Near the end of my time at Boston Market, and I'm pretty checked out. Some woman on her phone, no less, kept asking me if we sell soup. I kept repeating yes. While trying to service the regulars, she asked where they were and what kind. So I say, see that sign where it says soups? Then she demands to speak to someone in charge. I walk out back, return, and ask what the issue was. Story 21, I work as a clerk in a county government office. One day, my manager went ahead and asked me to collect all the extra recycling paper around the copiers and dump them in the locked recycling bins around the floor. He said that he was going to let my supervisor know that I was doing this task for him. About halfway into it, my supervisor comes back from her meeting and notices that I'm not at my desk doing my assigned work. She came up to me and started asking me what was I doing. I told her the manager asked me to empty the recycling. She immediately flipped out and yelled at me in front of the entire floor of about 40 people. I don't care if he told you. I am your supervisor. You get back to your desk now. And proceeded to slam the door to her dark office cave. After she saw me sit back down at my desk, I immediately knocked on my manager's door and informed him. I went back to my desk, and she opened the door to her office. The manager stepped outside his door and yelled to my supervisor in a stern voice, "My office now." After several minutes, I got a call on my desk phone from him and asked me to come into his office. Almost immediately, my supervisor apologizes to me for embarrassing me in front of my peers. He then told the supervisor that while she is my supervisor, I am your manager, your boss. If you want to discipline volunteer, you do in your own office with the door shut. That is what an office is for. Privacy. My manager then told me to go finish the task he asked me to do and told my supervisor to get back to work. Story 22, I witnessed an awesome one. One of the cashiers was pushing carts of returns to their aisles when she overheard a customer loudly saying derogatory words ranging from average curse words to ones about certain races. She politely asked them to stop. They then started screaming at her for no reason, saying that this isn't her store and that they can do what they want. The whole freedom of speech. What the guy didn't notice was that the main manager of the night was right behind him. The customer turned around to see a 6 feet ex-Marine forcefully say that it may not be your store, but this is my store, and you need to leave now. Needless to say, the customer sprinted out the store. Story 23, I had started a computer science club at the community college I went to before transferring. I had been asking around for permission to get supplies from the IT for various projects. I go the guy that typically help people in the computer lab and go, "Hey, I'm here for the computer science club." And he cuts me off and points at the sign I put up right outside the lab the day before. The sign-up sheet's outside the door. It's run by a student, not the department. I wave and go, "Hi, I'm a student running it. I wanted a monitor and stuff for a Raspberry Pi." And conclusion, he was like, "Oh, we're out of ticket. We can't just give you hardware." Story 24. So I used to work at a huge chain tool store. A month after I started, I was promoted to a key holder, and 2 months after that, I was made a supervisor. This made me in charge when it was the manager's day off. At the time, I was a 155 cm 40 kg female that looked about 12. A lot of people in the building industry are very rude and don't like the opinion of females. My father is a builder, so I had basic knowledge of how everything works and am good at helping customers find what they need. One day, a gentleman spoke to my colleague, a clueless 18-year-old male, about getting guttering for his house. Gutters are the pipes that go around the edge of your roof and transport rainwater. My colleague didn't really know how to help him, so he asked me to help. The customer, a 50-year-old grumpy male, gave me one look and immediately asked if he could speak to someone else. I shrugged and got another colleague. He helped the man find the right items, and the man suddenly brings out blueprints of his house and asks my colleague to help him calculate how much gutter pipes he needed. My colleague was about 30 and not the brightest bulb. I left them to it and went to help another customer. The customer I went to was a regular and immediately started praising me about how he was sure I could help him find a replacement for some tiny weird bolt for his sink. After a few minutes of looking through some boxes, we found the right one, and he continued to praise me, even going so far as to tell the other customer how brilliant I was. The other customer immediately got annoyed. Apparently, he couldn't tolerate a girl knowing anything about his profession. He immediately asked my colleague to speak to whoever was in charge because they weren't getting anywhere. My colleague stared at me. After finishing with my own customer, I went back to Mr. Grumpy Pants. "How can I help, sir?" He paled a bit and obviously realized the situation. He then asked if I'd be so kind of help him work out how much pipe he needed. Much to the relief of my colleague, I took over, and after 20 minutes with a ruler and a calculator, we had the back of his van loaded with pipes, and off he went. My colleagues were impressed with my ability to handle the customer. But what shocked us all the most was not 5 minutes later. The man returned with a box of ice creams for all of us to share. It was the middle of summer, and the warehouse we worked in was sweltering. To make things even better, a week later, he came back in for some other items and told us how he had ended up with the perfect amount of gutter and apologized to me. It's situations like that made me really enjoy retail, and sometimes I even miss it. Story 25, working the night shift at a small seafood restaurant. There was just two of us, and I was the manager. For reference, I'm only 18, so it catches people off guard. I was cooking an order for some lady who walked in when she started questioning why I was qualified to be cooking her food. I am trained and certified, so I was not happy. She started to demand to speak to the manager, so I came out and told her I was. All the color drained from her face, and she quietly sat down until her food was done. Story 26, I was the foreman for an asbestos abatement company. Basically the guys that demolish anything made of hazardous materials. Anyway, we get this massive job, doing a whole skyscraper downtown. So we hire 40 new guys, and instead of mixing old and new guys so things run smooth, they lump me with all 40 of the new guys. Well, first day there, and I'm doing my job, giving orders and telling people proper safety protocols and blah blah. Then I go into this back room where about 12 guys are taking out fluorescent lights, mercury and PCBs, and this guy is standing on a rolling scaffold without rails pulling himself from light to light. He is 6 feet in the air without handrails, using a scaffold as a skateboard. Big no-no. So I tell him get down between lights. You'll get a fine for that, and OHS is here today. He ignores me. I figure whatever will write him up later. So I keep going in that room because they were doing everything wrong, all new guys remember, until finally the owner and supervisor come through and see two guys doing nothing and chatting. Supervisor is pissed, so yell stop talking about jerking each other off and get TO work. Everyone turns to look and is like, I giggle. This guy that was chatting happens to be scaffold skateboard guy. He in his infinite wisdom decides to turn to our 68th supervisor and from his dumb mouth says, well, that kid is just telling everyone what to do like he's the boss, and he's doing nothing while pointing at me. At this point, I realized they weren't in a meeting this morning. They have no idea who I am. The supervisor and the owner both point at me and say him. He is your boss. Everyone in the room turns to look at me with a look of sheer and utter shock. I laughed about it for weeks. One of the guys who was ahead and wouldn't listen to me earlier ended up becoming a great friend to this day. I was 17. I started there right out of high school and got promoted to foreman after 6 months. That industry has a lot of useless people, so it's not nearly as impressive as it sounds. I used to own a store. One day I'm at the register, watching TV when a woman comes up and asks for a refund. My policy was no refunds unless defective or something like that. She wanted to return a 200 item for her cash back. Told her sorry, but I won't be able to make a return and told her why. She got all huffy-puffy and said, listen, I know the owner of this store. Did not make me call him. I gave her his new number, which was just mine, and made an apologetic gesture, telling her head tell her the same thing. She actually called the number. I pick up on my cell and tell her that we don't make refunds unless the product is defective. She looks at me with wide eyes, and I tell her, ma'am, I'm the owner. I opened this shop a couple years ago. She walks out muttering about reporting me to Yelp.